So I do want to welcome everyone to this session, Collaboration Sharing Files Without Box. My name is Susan Groshong, and I'm your host for this session. Actually, I'm joined by Paula Debates, who will also be helping to host the session. I do want to take time to thank you for taking time to invest in your own development and participate in this year's Staff Recognition Week training seminars. We're happy to be able to bring you 30 different sessions of learning this year. And it's over the next 2 days. So we're done with our first day. And I hope you can find some other activities that the Staff Advisory Council is hosting this week as well. Now I'm going to go in and introduce and thank our presenter, Mel Wolverson, who currently works with Extension. I'm going to let her give you more information about her background. But thank you, Mel, for bringing us this important and interesting topic. And I'm just going to go on and turn my mic off and unanimate myself and just hand it over to you, Mel. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Hello again to some of you guys who were in the previous talk I gave a little bit earlier. If you would, go ahead and open the chat and let me know, have you been using Teams? Have you been trying to collaborate? What options have you been using? And I'll go over some of the options. Now, if you were in my session last fall, we do have some more information has come out since then. And we have also a new option as well. So I'll inform you about that. So some of it will seem familiar if you were here last fall, but we've got some updates and some new information. So hopefully it'll be good. There's lots of things we've learned over the past year of trying to figure all this out. And this is done in coordination with IT. I used to work with IT as their IT trainer for over 10 years. And I've actually collaborated, collaboration, with IT on this. There's another person during this event who is specifically talking about the app, the Teams app. So if you're interested in that, learning more about how to use it, you might check that out as well. And he'll be doing an in-depth check-in on that. All right, well, I'm going to turn off my video and I'll dive into just a few slides kind of describing what's going on in the different options. And then I'll go ahead and show you those options so you can see how it works. All right, just started using the files. Okay, so just started kind of jumping in. I know a lot of groups have been jumping in over the past month or two because the final box is going away is creeping up on us all. And so we're all trying to finish up that move. All right, so box is going away in August, and that is the plan. And so the idea is, where will I put my stuff? Where does it go? And how do I share it with people in a way that's safe and also easy for people to use? So we have lots of different options. We've got OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint, which all work together in a sort of collaborative pile, but they all do different things. And then we have a new option, or new to most people. Most people just don't know about it. And that's Google, and that's Google Drive. So depending on the content, who you're sharing it with, and how you're going to collaborate with it, your options might be different. You might decide, oh, I like that one better. Oh, or that one's going to be better for my team. So we're going to cover each of these and what they do and what their benefits are as we go through. Now, Box is still the answer for HIPAA and level 4 data. I have not heard any updates further on that. HIPAA and level 4 data, but anything up to level 3 should be fine on any of these options. All right, I'm actually going to skip this and go straight into the collaboration options. So OneDrive. OneDrive is meant to be the place where you put your files. In fact, recently, IT at Extension took my files and they moved them from our backup server to now my desktop, and all my files back up to OneDrive, and they do that automatically. And I think that's happening for a lot of Extension folks and a lot of folks across the university, just trying to change those backups from either servers or Box or whatever we were using before to OneDrive. So OneDrive is very much your personal space for your files and your backups. OneDrive is for one. You are the one. Okay, so that hopefully that'll make it a little easier to remember. However, you can collaborate on stuff from OneDrive. So for instance, from the Teams app, if you go to Files and then OneDrive, that's how you get to your OneDrive files, right? You can then go to, whatever you have saved on your desktop, whatever you have put there. If your IT has not set it up yet, you might not have anything in there, and that's fine. But let me go to a file. I can select this JPEG, and let's say that as a graphic design person, I made this image and I want to make sure that my boss is okay with it before I use it on the website. Well, I don't have to put it in Teams, right? I don't have to copy it over to Teams to share it with them. I can share this one file to one other person, just leaving it in OneDrive. So to do that, I usually go ahead and open up OneDrive on the website. So I select the file and then I click Open in OneDrive. You don't have to do it this way, but I find that it's just easier and I have more options. Okay, so I select that image now that I'm here. I'm not sure why it makes you reselect the image. I didn't think it used to do that. Might be OneDrive. So I reselect the image, and then up at the top, I have share. And on the item itself, there's also a little share button. So I click on that. And in OneDrive, I can decide anyone with a link. That's public, that's anybody. So you could share from OneDrive to the public if you needed to. People in the university with the link, so that means they're going to have to log on to get to it, but it could be anyone who works for the whole system. People with existing access. So let's say if I had this file and I shared it with you before, but you couldn't find the link, I could just choose people with existing access and that would work. Or specific people. Now, a specific person is what I'm going to choose, so I can send it to a specific person. And I'm going to go ahead and actually for this file, it doesn't really, it's a JPEG, so they probably wouldn't edit it. But I could allow editing if I needed to. I could even block the download, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to click apply. And now because I chose specific people, I have to go ahead and type in their name. I'll put Kyle in here because he's used to me sending crazy things for sessions. Okay. And I could hit send and it would send him an email that has that message and it goes ahead and allows him access to that file. So I can collaborate with him very specifically on that file. I can also copy the link. So if I don't want to send him this message, maybe I think it'll confuse him. I don't think it would, but let's say it would. Then I could just choose copy link. It gives me a link that I can copy. And then I can go into Outlook and say, hey, this is that file I finished. Here's the link. Can you tell me if it's okay before I put it on the website? So I would just copy that, take it to Outlook, drop it in an email, and then he would be able to get to that file. So I'll go ahead and close that. That's how you can collaborate within OneDrive. You probably do not want to use OneDrive for sharing a bunch of files with a bunch of people, but you could share one file with one person or a small group of people, or you could share one file with a large group of people, but it's not really made for collaboration. However, there is that public link option in there, so you could use it. Okay? But I will say there are better options, but that is an option. All right, next, let's look at Teams. Well, Teams is made for collaboration. Teams is absolutely made for collaboration. You get lots of people, and typically a team would be university people. So, for instance, the marketing department for Extension has a team. And we all have access. Everyone, all the members of that team have access to all the files in the team. The owners of the team have slightly more access. They can access private channels that people have made. They can access any files. They can add people, which only an owner can add a guest. A guest would be someone with a non-university email. So that's how you would bring in a non-university person into your team. The owner has to do that. Now, the teams, like I said, are mostly made up of university groups, and you would have maybe a guest, maybe not, but typically a team is made up of university people. Someone has asked, what happens if an owner leaves the university? That's a very good question, and I want to answer that right away. Have more than one owner. Have more than one owner, because if the owner leaves, the team doesn't leave, the team doesn't disband or anything automatically. It just floats out there. And if it becomes a team that nobody is going to use anymore, then IT has to go in and try to find it and try to remove it. So definitely make sure that your teams have more than one owner, and whoever creates the team is the owner by default, so they can add another owner. When they add people, they can add another owner, and then if they leave, the other owner still has full owner access and they get to add another owner, right? Someone has asked, can a resource account be an owner? I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I think it would depend on the resource account, because some resource accounts are truly resource accounts with limited access, and some resource accounts are more like people in the system. So it would depend on the resource account, and it would also depend how it was set up and things, but normally a resource account in Teams would not be an owner. So good question. All right, so we have owners who have full access, can add people, can remove people, can add guests, can see private channels, the whole works. We have members who can see all the files, who can create channels, how I believe can create private channels even, and have different channels for different groups and be in them. Guest is a non-university account, has limited access. They can't add other people, and they can see all the files though. You can't limit a guest or another member to a folder. That is the downside of Teams. Every member, every guest has access to the whole thing. And owners, of course, have access to everything plus. So they're not really built to give these three people a piece and give these three people a piece and give these three people a piece. They're made so that everybody has equal access and everybody can work with those files. Okay? So Teams, let's look at that. And let's also, actually, before I go on here, yeah, let me, if it could stop moving, there we go. If I go back to the Teams app, which is not the same exact thing as Teams, the Teams app actually has a lot more in it than just Teams. The Teams app has your OneDrive, it has your calls, it has your chats, it has your Teams, but it also has your calendar and it has your activities, right? It's sort of an all-in-one app. Teams itself is just your different groups of people that you're part of. So if I go back to Teams, the little icon on the left, I have a team here that I use for training. And I go to General here. And I go to Files. And so everybody here, everybody within this team has access to all of these files equally. Now, let me select a file here, Banner Mini, and I'll click Open in SharePoint. Now, just like OneDrive has Open in OneDrive and it opens up on the website, Teams has the same thing, and it opens up the exact same files on SharePoint on the website. So I actually have a couple of those already open over here in my browser. So I'll just switch back. And here we go. Here's the one for the team I was just showing you, the training one. So I have this general section and I have folders in here. Here's one called Testy Test, Banner Mini. And if I select one of those, notice I have the share button just like I had in OneDrive. So I have the share button up here at the top and I have the share button here. So I click on that and send link. This should look familiar. Looks like OneDrive. Oh, you guys see the difference? Right here. Anyone with a link is grayed out. So for most of the teams, this is the default, anyone with the link is grayed out for Teams. And that's security reasons, right? It could cause problems if we had, files that we were sharing within a department, like a finance department or an HR department, and we're sharing them with each other. And then somebody, the team decides, you know what, I want to share that publicly. Well, they could still copy it to their OneDrive and share it publicly. But this stops the instant point, right? So anyone with the link is grayed out. You can still share with anyone in the university. They don't have to be in the team. They just have to be within the university, so they have to log in. You can share people with existing access. That's any team member. Or you can share with a specific person. Now, anyone with the link has been grayed out. So a specific person is not necessarily going to be Joe Q Public, right? It might be someone in the university or right, something like that. So you can share out. Now, there is a step that you can take. You can contact IT, contact your IT pro and say, I need my team to be able to share files publicly on the website. That's what we did with Extension for web services for the Extension website so that we could share SharePoint links, so we could share basically any files, PDFs and things out onto the website. And it does work and it works very well, but you have to get special permission. If your IT pro does not know how to do it, have them email me and I will send them the contact. But I will say that a little extra information, over the past almost year that we've been using SharePoint, a lot of people have had trouble accessing those public links for whatever reason. If they're logged on to their own SharePoint account, it might not let them have access. If they're not logged on, It should give them access, but for some reason it asks for access. Basically, almost all the issues we have had with our links, putting our links on our public website, people clicking on them and trying to download them, they've all been access issues. I can't access the link. It tells me I don't have access, even though I'm not logged in and it's a public link. Or I am logged in, but it's a public link, right? So we have had some of those issues, and that is why we have moved some of our files over to Google, which is our last option I'll talk about. But you can make your team have public links. And again, you have to contact your IT pro for that process. Oh, we're running low on time. Right? Or do we have half an hour? It's been crazy. I'll keep going until somebody.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
okay.
Like, where's the mute? Where's my thing to do the mute? No, you've got an hour.
Okay. All right. We're good. So we have enough time. I was like, man, that seems like such a short amount of time we've been going. It has been. Okay.
It has.
I feel better. All right. So this is our public drive that we use on the website, our public SharePoint drive. And so if I select one of these files, like the AP style sheet, and click share, it's the same thing. It's a team that has been opened on the website for SharePoint, but now I have anyone with the link with an option. Now let me talk about some of the options down here at the bottom, because some of these are actually new. One of them is allow editing. Now, you need to be really careful about that. When you're collaborating, you might want to allow editing. And this is a Word document, so they could actually edit the Word document. This doesn't mean they download it and they edit it on their own. This means they can edit it in SharePoint. They can edit it within the setting. So be aware of that. Allow editing means they can change the main document that's here in SharePoint. Open and review only mode is just that. They can open it, but it's review only. They can just look at it. That's fine. Kind of contradicts with allow editing, but if you want more information, you can hover over the little I, right? In review mode, people can only leave comments and suggest changes. So they can edit, but they are a little limited. Now, if you don't allow editing, you can also block download. So let's say that I have a document that I want to show to people, but I don't necessarily want them to download it and change it and do things with it. Well, there are ways around that. Of course, people could take a screenshot, or people could do various things that would have them have a copy of it. But if you don't want them to download it, that is a quick way that you can block them from doing so. And then I could click apply and it would apply that to the link. Someone has asked, share a whole folder and block downloading. As far as I know, there is no way to do that. Good question, though. Then maybe they should add that. Some of these other settings have been added since we started using SharePoint. So I do think there may be more changes to come. You never know. Will you be notified if the person you shared the file with edits it? No, not by default. However, you can, let me hit cancel and close that. If I click on the item, and I'll go ahead and open it. Let me see here. Here we go. Version history. And this was under the menu here up at the top, the name of the file. I opened it and I had version history underneath that. And then notice over on the far right hand side, I have current version and you can see all of the changes that I've made to it when and sort of find out a little bit of information like what was changed. If I click on it, I can kind of see what was changed in this particular document. And then if I want that version instead, I can say restore up at the top. I can say restore, and that allows me to restore it back to that previous version. So I can see who made the changes, what those changes were, and also revert back to a previous version if I need to. I understand IT will be hiring someone to migrate box files. Will these all be going into OneDrive, or where will they go? That is a good question. So if they are your files, if they were your backup, so a lot of people had their computers backed up to Box. So every night or on a regular basis, all of the files on their desktop and their documents folder would be backed up to Box. And part of what IT is going to be doing, and they've already done in some cases in some departments, is they're going to be shuffling that over from Box to OneDrive. So if it's your personal files, it will definitely go to OneDrive. If it's a resource account, if it's a Box resource account, I do not know where they are putting those. I do not know if they're going to do that for us. You probably have to decide as a department where those files are going to go before they move them, I'm going to assume. Otherwise, they'll probably put them in a team for you. All right. So just to encapsulate, Teams does not allow you to share publicly by default, but that option can be turned on. When you do share those files, there are options like I don't have to allow you to download. I don't have to allow you to edit. I can just say you can view, right? So you can do limited collaboration, or you can do full collaboration. And you can even collaborate on something live. So for instance, I can select new, and this is sort of top leftish, and this is in my team on the website. So SharePoint Online. Okay. I can select new, and then I can select Excel workbook. And then I can start editing this file. Now I'm going to do something a little bit dangerous here. I'm going to share this file with a link. I'm going to, oh, no, I don't want to. I'll do people with the university and I'll allow editing. And I'll copy the link and I'm just going to paste that in the chat. And if you guys want to try it, go ahead and try it. And you should be able to, once you log in, edit the document and change things. So I can type stuff here. Oh, we already have some people here. Nice. So you can see we have lots of people collaborating on the same document all at the same time. So we could all be in a meeting and we could be filling out ideas for a project that we're working on. We could be volunteering for different sections of an event, and we could just be adding our names during the meeting. We could be just checking out the document. Oh, well, that number is actually off. Can I change that? And it saves it. It automatically saves it. You don't have to click save. It just automatically saves it. And you can tell it has by up in the top left-hand corner, see where it says book and then saved. If it says saving, or if it says something other than saved, it's still saving, so don't close it. But as long as it says saved, you're safe and it should be good to go. Someone had a good question. Can someone overwrite you right away? Yes, they can. It is all live editing. So someone can go in and change somebody else's if you want to. Now, I will say that just like I was showing you earlier, all of the changes are being recorded. And so you can go back to a previous version before somebody deleted what you wanted. Somebody's asking, can you collaborate? Can collaboration take place not live in files? And the answer is if you tell them not to. The options are you allow collaboration, you allow editing, or you can limit it to just a download. And then they would have to download it and make their changes and upload it with a new file name or something like that. And that's possible. So let's say I had a student project and I dropped it in the SharePoint folder and I shared it with all the students. Well, I wouldn't necessarily want them to go in and edit it individually because they're supposed to do it each themselves, right? I wouldn't want them to overwrite each other as they're editing the thing. So then I would just not allow editing. And they should still be able to download it if I don't allow editing. But I would double check just to make sure. Now, this same process is also true for Word document. So if I go back here and I select new, notice I can do a Word document, I can do Excel, I can do PowerPoint presentation, OneNote notebook. OneNote notebook is actually very popular for teams that have meetings. And so you can take your meeting notes in OneNote within the team, and then all of those meeting notes are automatically instantly there. And anybody can look at them. And if somebody needs to update them, they can, right? So OneNote, really popular. You could also use a Word document if you were more familiar with it and more comfortable. You could use a Word document for the same process, the same thing. Keeps it all in the team, keeps it all handy. All right, I'll go ahead and go back into my book here that I just created. And notice that, whoa, it instantly populated here. Notice that up at the top, you can see who is actively participating. So if this was for a meeting or something and you wanted to take roll call, you could also use this as sort of a roll call if you wanted to. Especially if it was a larger group that you were trying to do roll call for, you could have everybody type their initials in or something like that, and that would record it right there. So that's kind of cool. Let me close that and come back here. Now, when you're collaborating, sometimes you will download the file and then re-upload the file. Well, SharePoint should be fine with that as long as it has the exact same name it did before. As long as it has the exact same name it did before, it'll actually give you a warning that says, there's already a file with the same name in this folder. Would you like to replace it? And you should be able to just say yes. And so just drag and drop, you can upload and take care of your versions that way if you want to. if it's maybe a PDF instead of a document that you can edit right here inside of the web system. Somebody has asked if you want to share with external people in a view-only mode, simply select share with people with a link and unclick editing. Yep, make sure that let me just go there. So you would choose anyone with a link. And if you just want them to view it, make sure that you block download. So you would block download, make sure that allow editing is unchecked. If it was something where it was a student worker or something and they only need it for the semester, you could even set an expiration date. So let's say I set the expiration date for, I don't want to set that one. Let me do this one. Here we go. I'll use the one I just created. So anyone with a link, block download, set expiration date for tomorrow, and I could even add a password, but of course passwords are only as protective as, you know, who you share it with, right? So you could even add a password to it if you really want to lock it down. Okay, so block download, uncheck allow editing, which it should do by default when you check block download. Anyone with a link should be good to go. These are all good questions, guys. Now, something I like to do is pin things to the top. So let's say that this book that we're collaborating on, this Excel sheet, let's say that it's really important and I want to be able to find it. Let's say that there's 500 files in this folder. I want to be able to find it. Well, I just select it, and up at the top, there's a thing called pin to top. If I click that, it gives me a little preview up here at the top, and it pins it here so that I can always get to it. It's always going to be right there, and that's going to make collaboration on a very common file nice and easy. Let's say it's a file where you log your hours every day, or a file that everybody uses to check who's signed in, or is it something that you use all the time, every week, every day. It would be really handy to go ahead and pin those to the top. And if I remember right, you can do that in OneDrive as well. No, maybe not. Nope, I guess not. Boy, that ought to be added. That would be a really handy feature in OneDrive. All right, so that's kind of nice. If you ever wanted to remove it, maybe you don't need it anymore, you can select it and then edit pin and then unpin. And you can also do it with a right click. Edit pin, unpin. That's another thing about SharePoint. Almost everything that you see up in the menu system is available through a right click. So you can right click on a folder and get all those options. You can right click on a file down here and you get all the options at the top, and a few more that you might have seen under the dots, right? So all your options, either right click or a menu at the top. Now, if you do have public people and you do have a SharePoint that you're sharing publicly, you can go ahead and share a whole folder. So for instance, something we use that, something have used it for, accounting has a whole folder full of newsletters, their newsletter archive. We have all of those in a SharePoint folder. We make the whole folder share and anyone with a link. And we take that link and we put it on the website. And then when people click on it, they get the whole folder full of files. And because we made the whole folder public, they can get into any of those files and download any of those newsletters. it makes sharing large groups of files a little bit easier. Now, that is where Google comes in. So let's look at that next. Let me quickly switch to Google Drive. Now, Google Drive is going to work almost exactly the same way as SharePoint with public access. The main difference is that a lot of people have already used Google Drive. They're already familiar with it. It's actually a little bit easier than SharePoint, a few less access issues. And so Google Drive, especially if you're working with younger groups or people who are not tech savvy, or people who already have Google Drive experience, this is going to be a better choice for them. And anybody with a umsystem.edu email address can set up a university Google account. Let me say that again. Anybody with a umsystem.edu email account can set up a Google Drive university account and have access to it. Now, the size limit is not infinite. With a SharePoint team, you've got 5 terabytes. That's a lot of space. So if you're sharing massive amounts of files, large images, you need to share a video with someone before they put it on YouTube, something like that, then you probably do want to use either OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams. So, one of those combinations of things that we just talked about just now to get that file out there. But Google has the benefit of being nice, simple. A lot of the public has already used it. So it's a great way to communicate across large groups who are not our university system people. So Teams, collaboration for university, and maybe a few externals. Google, a collaboration tool for mostly external people or people who are less tech savvy. Does that boil it down okay for everybody? So Teams is more internal, more tech savvy. Google is less tech savvy or more external. And that's the way I've been sharing it with everybody. So let's say I have some collaborators in Harvard, and I have some collaborators in University of Ohio, and I have some University of Missouri people, and I have, University of Texas people, right? They are going to be less likely to want to download the Teams app and learn the Teams app and get used to SharePoint and learn SharePoint than they are Google Drive. So for that, I would say go with Google. There's less of a learning curve. And as far as sharing content between the people, it's very similar. So to set up your account, you go to google.com. You use your @umsystem.edu email. And then once you type that in, it'll go to the university login. You'll need to do the dual factor authentication setup to get it set up. But then you'll be in and you'll have access. All right, let me show you how that looks. Okay, so this is our Google Drive that we have set up for extension web services. And as you can see, we've got folders. And in those folders, well, this one doesn't have a file in it, of course. There we go. So this has various different files in it. Each of these files can be shared. Each of these folders can be shared with either a group of people or an individual person. So unlike Teams, where all of your team members have equal access to all the files, on Google, you can say, I want this team to have access to this folder, and I want this team to have access to this folder. And the team that has folder A can't add anybody else. They can't add extra people. They can only see it themselves and edit the files themselves. Team B can only see the files in Team B folder, and they can't add anybody from Team A or anywhere else to that folder. They only have access to it, and they can only edit it. Okay? So you can more separate out your groups into sort of sub-teams. And the only people who have access to add people are managers. So the only people who can add more people to your Google Drive are going to be the managers of the drive. And all of those managers have full access. They're kind of like an owner of a team. You have a manager of a Google Drive. Full access. They can do everything. Hopefully that makes sense. As far as sharing files, I can right click on the file. I can go to share because I am the manager of this team. And I can add people. Now, just like SharePoint and Teams, it's logged into our university system. So if I type in somebody, like if I were to type in Megan Sylvie, notice various emails come up with Megan Sylvie because everybody at the university, right, they have a health.missouri, they might have a missouri.edu, they might have a mail.missouri.edu. People have different emails within the system, but everybody has an @umsystem.edu email as part of their set of emails. So I need to just make sure that I choose the UM system one. Okay. And then I can put in a message to her and say, this is your Google folder, or this is your Google file, or this is your Google folder that you now have access to. You can change the files, you can edit the files. Let me know if you have questions. And I recommend doing that because otherwise they might think it's spam. Okay. So I'm just going to put in testy test, ignore, right? Just as an example message. Now, as far as me sharing this with her, I can make her a viewer, a commenter, or an editor. A viewer only has the ability to download and view and print. So viewer equals download, look at it, and print it. Commenter allows them to comment on the file as well, leaving comments to the side. I can't think why you would use this one. Maybe if you were sending it to a manager and you just wanted feedback, but most of the time commenter is not what you're going to choose. Most of the time you'll either want viewer, they can just look and download, or edit. An editor, that means they can upload a new version, they can download it, they can change it if it's certain types of files, just like on SharePoint, you can actually work on an Excel document right there. There are certain types of files on Google that Google can do the same thing with. An editor would allow them to edit those. For a public link, of course, you'd want viewer, but for something more internal, you might want editor. Okay, so viewer. And then I can go ahead and hit send, and then she would get an email that says, hey, testy test ignore, and then it would have a link to that particular file on Google. Let me go back. I'm done. I'm done. I'll just click elsewhere to get out of that entirely. The same thing is true with folders. So if I click on a folder and then I right click on it, I get share, and I can do this exact same thing. Now, let's say I just want a link. Maybe I just want a link for the website. Well, that's different. So we have share, which means I want to add somebody to this folder or this file, and I want to give them full access and I want them to have more options. That's typically what you would do. If you're just going to post it on the website, or you're going to post it on social media, or you're going to maybe post it in a newsletter, then you would want get link. And for get link, it's a little bit simpler. You can choose anyone with a link, which is your public option, and restricted, which means it's restricted based on the folder it's in, essentially. Now, this particular folder is a publicly shared folder. So Google is kind of confused. It's like, well, you shared the whole folder publicly. So why would you care about a file inside the folder? Which is actually really logical. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. If I do anyone with the link, of course, that's going to be a public link. But then I can alter it a little bit. So again, do I want the public to be able to edit it? Probably not. Probably for the public, I just want them to be a viewer. So just like I can share and decide what kind of quality, what kind of permissions people have, I can also do the link and have the link have a few options. So if it's anyone with the link, viewer, that's a really good option for a public link. I can copy that and then I can put it on the website, or I can put it in my newsletter and paste it in. Okay. So again, right click, you can share if you have manager ability, or you can do get link pretty much for anything. Okay. All right. Someone has asked, who are managers? Managers would be whoever sets up the account, would be a manager by default. You can use certain types of resource accounts. For this, we have used our extension resource account as sort of our owner. And then from there, I made other managers also have manager responsibility from there. So you can have more than one manager. It's kind of like the owner of a team. I recommend having more than one, 2 or 3. Now keep in mind that whoever are your managers, both for Teams and Google, if someone asks for access to a file, all of them will get an email. So when somebody asks for access to a Google file, myself, the resource account, and another person all get an email saying, please give me access. So if you made your entire team managers, either in Teams or in Google, they're going to have to set some sort of Outlook rule, because otherwise they're just going to get tons of email all the time, people asking for access. Possibly. They might not get any emails, but they might. So just keep that in mind when you're setting up managers. And the other option is a content manager. So a content manager is just one step for manager, and the only thing they can't do is add other people to folders and files. Quick question. Okay, you started talking about Teams, but now we're in SharePoint. What is the difference? Okay, that's actually a good question. So Teams and SharePoint are the same. It's just a different way of talking about the same thing. And it's really confusing. I wish they hadn't called the Teams app the Teams app. I wish they would have called it something different, because the Teams app actually contains lots of different things that aren't Teams. And then Teams themselves, not the app, but Teams themselves are essentially a collection of people, and SharePoint is just a way to access the files that that group of people are sharing. So SharePoint is the web version of what you see in Teams. And And another way to put it would be Teams is a way to access the files that are in SharePoint. That would be another way to put it. Yeah, I wish they'd called it something like the Access app, or no, that would be even more confusing because Access is another one of their apps. But yeah, having the name and Teams be the same name is a little bit confusing, for sure. We are coming up on 4:30. We're only a few minutes away, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. I know this is a little confusing. I'm just going to recap it right quick. So OneDrive is where you put your files. It's where you put your backup files. And you can collaborate. You can share a file, but it's mostly one-on-one. Teams plus SharePoint, those two sort of combined same thingies, are for mostly sharing files within a university group. So a department, a panel, a project, a group within a department. Those would all be really good teams. And those are great for collaboration. You've got lots of space, but they're largely internal with a small external sort of tendril stretching out. Google is wide open for external sharing. My example was Harvard and Texas and Ohio State all working together on a project. It's great for that. It's very open, and there's a low tech level of entry. So those are the three main options for moving away from Box and still being able to collaborate with the various different groups that you share with.
Now, the last thing that's in chat says, look at question 422. And the question is, I'm following along trying to share with public in OneDrive Teams, and I do not see the block download option. What should I do?
Trying to share the public. My main question would be, are you using the app or are you using the website? Mm-hmm. Because the Teams app is extremely limited in its sharing options. So if I click on something in the app, I don't have a lot of share options. It's really limited. I can copy the link, but it's just super limited. If I go to the website, go back to SharePoint. If I go to the website, then I've got the share link. And so I right click on the file or the folder I want to share. I choose share. And then that's where I have anyone with the link, whoever I want to share with. So I'll do anyone with the link, and then allow editing, right? Or block download is one of those options.
And then I see that Sanita has her hand up.
Yes, that's actually my question. Yes, could it be that so far I do not have the share with the link? It's grayed out for me right now. Anyone with the link is grayed out, and IT is working on enabling that for me. I don't know if that has to do with me unable to see the block download option.
That is possible.
Because I have done everything that you said. I know in Teams, I cannot do anything. So what I do in Teams is I open with SharePoint and then trying to share through SharePoint, trying to share with the public with SharePoint. However, I share with the link is grayed out for me, and I don't see the block download option.
Yeah, it might be a permissions thing. And once they turn that on, that might be fine. I did have to click people you can specify. And then it's in that box rather than the initial box. It's not under copy link, it's under here. So it is one extra step, but No, if this is grayed out, if you're in this box and anyone with the link is grayed out and you don't see block download, then
Mhm.
that's going to be connected.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Mel. This is all really confusing, and I think we're starting to get it teased apart. So I appreciate you taking the time to tell us about it.
It is quite confusing. And if anybody's trying to work through something, they're working through their own project and they need some help, feel free to contact me. Feel free to email me. Here's my email up on the shared screen. Drop me a line. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you so much. I think that's helpful. This is the second time I've sat through your session, and every time it makes a little bit more sense. And I think it also helps a lot for me just to work with it.
Yeah.
And it's weird, I think too, that they almost drive you to the website versus the app, which seems a little backward to me. So
yeah, I have no idea why they have it set up that way. I'm guessing it's just harder to program for everybody's computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the things you know.
All right.
Well, it looks like we have.
Somebody asked, how do I get to SharePoint Online? Go to it in your Teams app and then just select any file. And as soon as you select any file, let me go back. Here we go. So select any file, doesn't matter which one, or a folder. And then up at the top, you should see Open in SharePoint. Or if you're in OneDrive, it'll say Open in OneDrive. But you click on that and it takes you out to the website, and it'll probably be already logged in if you click on it from the Teams app, but you might have to log in.
I just tried going straight from the website and I had to click ask for access. I have no idea what I just did.
Yeah, that was my question, asking how to get online. I don't have those options in my Teams app. So I'm in the files right now, in the app, not online, but in the whatever's on my desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got files saved in there, and I kind of hovered over it. Is it open in browser?
That might work.
Because
Open in
it
browser?
doesn't look, my Teams app doesn't look anything like your screen right now.
It's completely different.
Yeah, because it's
Sure you're in the
not.
Teams
Yeah,
app?
I am. I wonder if we all have different versions.
It shouldn't, because it's fairly new. It's new enough that it hasn't really changed that much.
Well, I'm looking at mine too, and it looks the same way as she's said, describing. I don't have those options at the top when
I don't either.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I have
in the bottom left-hand corner, do you guys see help?
Yes.
You might check that.
Do you want me to go into, so I'm clicking on files on the left under activity. I click on files.
Okay,
and open
that's
up a
OneDrive.
Okay, that's OneDrive.
So that's a different place. That's okay. So that might be the issue.
So where were you just now?
I see.
Team?
Can you see my screen?
I can.
So I'm in that same place and I see where it says open in browser. Is that what it looks like to you?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, you are in, actually you're probably, so up at the top or underneath files, it says recent, and then it says Microsoft Teams downloads OneDrive.
Yes.
So if you click on OneDrive, that's where your OneDrive is.
Right.
Recent is just your recently open files. Now, if the file, so if you look at location, see where you have those various different locations? See how I
Yes.
have Okay, so if I were to right click on this and open in browser, it would take me to the right place. It would take you to SharePoint Online, where I just was
Gotcha.
earlier showing you the website. So yes,
Gotcha.
that would work.
Thank you so much, because it was just confusing because of the way it was looking.
Yeah, no problem. And it's kind of confusing as well because you would think everything would be under files, but where I was earlier, I was under Teams, and then in the team, I was going to files. So if you look at mine, I've got the Teams icon is
Yes.
purple. And then under this specific team, right, I've got that selected. And then for every team, there's a link that says files.
Right. So your navigation on the right and across the, or on the left and across the top are not the same.
Right.
Ah, okay.
and it's all based on whether you've got the Teams icon selected or the files icon selected.
Right.
There's your difference. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you taking the time because, like I said, we're trying to figure out. I had moved all of our box files to OneDrive because that's where I thought we were supposed to go. And so now I'm moving them all from OneDrive to Teams. And, the access thing is going to be tricky. So I really appreciate you taking the time to have this for us today.
No problem. And if you get stuck later, let me know. And Susan has posted in the chat, the presentation will be available, the recording will be available mid-June.
Yeah.
On YouTube. So
right.
That'll be hopefully helpful as we finish up the transition away.
There are also in Teams, there are training things down there at the bottom. There's some training things too in the bottom of that left-hand column. Those are very helpful as well, I have found.
Yes. Yeah, you go, if you're looking at my screen, go to help and then training.
Yeah, they have some short trainings there.
Yeah.
Well, alrighty. If we, I think we could go on all night, Mel, but maybe we shouldn't. So,
Go round and round.
Yeah, I think that you've given us some things to think about and some options and some alternatives for additional help. And I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you, Mel. Always appreciate it.